Hi. So, what is Geeklog? I get this question a lot. So Geeklog is a content management system. To be exact, it's a web content management system. In other words, it's an application you install on your web server.
Can you stand closer?
Okay, more closer. It's an application you install on a web server, and then you can use it to run a website with. And I know what you're thinking now. Does the world really need yet another content management system? But actually, Geeklog has been around for a while. The first public release was made back in 2000, so we're over 10 years old now. And if you haven't heard of Geeklog before, maybe you've heard of this website, which if you scroll down, the next time you visit it, you may want to scroll down to the end and check at the bottom where it says in small letters, powered by Geeklog. And since no Macs in here right now, there's one up there. Mac users may know another website called macOS10hints.com, which is pretty popular for tips and tricks for Mac users. And it's also been running on Geeklog for a very long time now. So these are probably the two biggest customers, in quotes, that we have really big installations. I guess Rocklaw has a bit more traffic, while macOS 10 hints may have more registered users, but I'm not exactly sure. Oh, I'm not used to stationary microphones, as you can tell. Yeah, then I'll try that. Anyway, so why would you want to use Geeklog instead of any of the other open source content management systems that are out there? Well, the main feature of Geeklog is our focus on security, because originally it was written for a security portal. So the original author, Jason Wittenberg, wanted to create a portal where he posts about security issues, and of course you want a secure content management system to run such a site, so he wrote it himself and open sourced it, and this is how Geeklog came about. Okay, security, what does that mean? Let's have a closer look here. Of course, what we have our usual programming guidelines and best practices for our code, so don't trust the user input, escape stuff before it gets into the database, all that's just standard. But you have to remember that security is not something that you reach once and then you stay there. Because things in security are always in a state of flow. Things change. For example, the easiest thing that may change is the environment your application is running in. So if your hosting provider installs a new version of the web server, then suddenly some things may not work like they did before. In that case, you can plan for it because you're probably taking track. Keeping track is the word. Keeping track of the changes, the upcoming changes in the web servers you support. But there are also cases when people find new ways to exploit things. So suddenly, something that you considered secure yesterday is not secure anymore today because somebody found a new way to exploit it and to work around what you thought was secure. And yeah, so the problem here is this is not really exact science. Security, you have to stay up to date, check what's happening out there. So this is what we do mostly. We monitor the usual mailing lists, we check what problems other web applications have, and we check is this something that could affect Geeklog as well. So if this were a talk for, say, a startup or something, I would probably say something about security is in our organization's DNA, but this is not a startup, and so I won't say that. But we take this stuff seriously, and you can ask our users. On occasion, we have rejected feature requests because we couldn't think of a way to implement it in a way that we consider secure. Okay, so that's one thing. What else do we have to offer? Just let me point out two features in Geeklog. We have these Unix-like permissions all the objects in Geeklog, for example, articles are objects, have an owner and an owner group, and you can set read and write permissions on them, just like in the Unix file system. So if you're familiar with the Unix file system, this should be obvious how to do that. So you can set read and write permissions for the owner, for the user group, and for the rest of the world, you can, of course, only set read permissions because, yeah, obviously you don't want everybody to write. Part of that is our groups system, so you can build hierarchies of groups. So if you have a sales and a marketing department, you can assign content to the sales and to the market department, and they can't see it. But if you then need the ability for someone to see it, then you just define a supergroup that includes both the other groups, and then they can access it. So just the normal stuff, like I said, that you're used to from a Unix file system. The other thing that we have is a spam filter, because there's still a lot of spam out there on the web pages. And the interesting thing about ours is that it's extensible. So if the spammers learn some new tricks, you can just write a module and put it into the spam filter and extend it easily that way. So it comes with the usual stuff, like a blacklist for words, like Viagra and all that, and blacklists for IPs. But we also have modules that connect to services that filter spam for you. So you've probably heard of Akismet or Molom if you're in WordPress or Drupal community. We're actually shipping with one that's for SLV. That's the service. It's spam link verification, just because that was the first that we found back when we implemented this that didn't require sign up. And it's still working quite nicely for us. But we also have filters for other services. Okay, so now these are the advantages of Geeklog. There are, of course, cases where you don't want to use Geeklog. So I'm not saying this is for everyone or for every situation. There are maybe two situations where you probably don't want to use Geeklog. The first is if you want all the latest and greatest features, because we don't usually have them right now. So if a new service comes up or a new way of doing things comes up, our community is usually pretty quick to find a hack or some way to make this happen, but it will take a while before it gets into the core, into Geeklog itself. We're a small community, and as I said, we like to do things properly, so it will take a while. The other situation is when you can foresee that you need professional support. So these days, you can probably walk into any design company, web design company, and get support for the popular content management systems out there. It's a little harder to find somebody who's familiar enough with Geeklog, just because we're not so well known. But then on the other hand, it's not so complicated, really. They should be able to get into it. So I mentioned our community. We're a small community after all these years still, but we're stable. And the good thing about small communities is that it's easy to get into. So we have a long list of ideas that we would like to implement at one point or another. And if somebody comes along and implements something like that, we take that with open arms, and there you have your entry point into the community. Speaking of communities, we've also been involved with this community, with the Google Summer of Code. For those who haven't heard, Google announced just yesterday here at FOSDEM that they are running the Google Summer of Code again this year. And for any open source project, I would really recommend trying to get into this program, because it's a really great way to get new contributors for your project. And we've been involved with the Summer of Code from 2007 to 2010. And we will be applying again for 2012. And this is just a quick overview over some of the ideas that have been implemented or are still on our list to do. So just to pick one out, we had a student implement a new installation script for us that's much nicer than the old one that we had. And he came back the next year in the second summer of code for us and extended it and added a feature to migrate your database from one server to another. And yeah, you can see some other ideas out there. Okay, so I've talked about Geeklog in general. Here's a few requirements if you want to try it out. First of all, you need PHP. And yes, I know PHP doesn't have exactly the best reputation regarding security. Most of that comes really from the applications. Yes, right now, they're just demonstrated again that there are sometimes problems in PHP itself, see versions 5.3.9 and 5.3.10. But most of the security issues regarding PHP are really in the applications. And we've had a few security experts look over our code in the past, and they usually used Geeklog as an example of a PHP application that isn't riddled with code, to quote one, with bugs, to quote one such researcher. So it is quite possible to write secure applications in PHP. In addition to PHP, you need a database. We're supporting MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, which was actually a Summer of Code project. And yes, we also support Microsoft SQL Server. And then, of course, you need a web server. It should work with any web server that supports PHP. These are just the ones that we know work. So Apache, the commercial Zeus web server, and Microsoft IIS. But there's no reason why it shouldn't work with Nginx or Lite. We just haven't heard one way or another. So if anyone wants to try it out, please give us feedback. I'm pretty sure that it works. For the developers of interest, Geeklog is released under the GPL version 2 with the or any later version clause. So we could, in theory, switch to version 3, but we just haven't found a reason to. The other thing you might be interested in is the plugin API that we have. So there are hooks in Geeklog pretty much everywhere. So you can extend Geeklog easily or change the way it works in certain situations. And if you just want to change the way your website looks, our themes are based in HTML and CSS. And it's pretty easy to modify that. You don't need to learn PHP to change the look of your site. And that was pretty much it. So in summary, Geeklog may not have all the latest and greatest features, but it's a mature and secure content management system. And if that's something you're interested in, you're welcome to try it out on geeklog.net or just drop by on our IRC channel, say hi, I sent you, and yeah. And yeah, we even have time for questions now. Okay. Quick check. Anyone wants to try it out? Who thinks about trying it out? Okay, a few people. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you as well. Some Belgian chocolate.